Hey guys, welcome back to Bass Fishing. Today we're going to do something new, and we're going to do a 2020 Smithville Bassmasters year in review, where I'm going to break down the details of my fishing, why I was doing what I was catching my fish on, with some highlights built in of the fish catches. So I was originally going to do all 8 tournaments in one, but once I started breaking them down, I was like, man, it's gonna be way too long of videos, so we're gonna do 4-part series. There's 8 events, so we'll do two tournaments per breakdown. So we're gonna start with the first tournament of the year, which was back in, I believe, end of May, early June. I'll put the actual date of the tournament right here, and it was at Smithville Lake. So for some background on this is we originally started our tournaments at the end of March, early April, but obviously with COVID this year we weren't able to do that. So we started on Smithville, and another caveat is I actually had a team tournament event the next day, living to fish. So we're actually going to be doing a living to fish tournament breakdown as well, in a separate series of videos. So we're starting with the Smithville Bassmasters. So we started this event for Smithville on a Saturday, so there's a living to fish tournament on Sunday. So that played pretty heavily into my decision making for where to fish. So we started in Little Platte because Little Platte is off limits for the Living to Fish tournament. So I was like, any keepers I can get in there, I'm not going to be burning up any fish for the next day. So I wanted to start in there. So we started in Little Platte. I think 4 boats started in there, 4 or 5 boats started in there in the tournament, which is not that uncommon, especially in the springtime. We started right away, missed a short fish on a topwater, like first or second cast. It was short, close to the keeper, one of the two, and that kind of set the tone on how my day went. I caught a couple more fish in there on a wacky rig and a popper, but they were just shorts. Ran to the second area, had a boat that like cut me off. That was really frustrating. Non-tournament boat, just a guy fishing, pulled out in front of me, which whatever. We went fish down the bank. And I missed one that felt like a good fish on the wacky rig. Again, that tone was set of missing fish. I missed a bunch of fish in this first tournament. Missed a fish, caught a short on a wacky rig, caught a short on a big TRD. Then we were going down the bank. There's a little cluster of trees that were off the bank a little bit on the main lake side, up by Camp Branch. I flipped up next to a tree with the TRD and caught my first keeper of the day. It was one that was probably a little bit over 3 pounds. It was a really good fish to start the year, and that made me happy. I got my points fish, so that's really all I wanted to accomplish in that first tournament. So we got that out of the way, so then it was just about going fishing. So we ran into the 4th area, which was a jetty, up the Camp Branch side. Didn't catch anything there, but then we kind of worked our way into that like little Boy Scout cove. When we got in there, the fishing kind of like turned on. I don't know if I just got around them or the fish started biting, but I caught a missed 2 in a row. Was getting really frustrated with the misses. I didn't quite understand what was going on. Missed 2 in a row on a wacky rig, and then I caught my second keeper on a wacky rig, and then proceeded to catch another short fish right after that. So I had 2, was pretty happy with the day overall. So then I decided, you know what, let's run back to Little Platte. I know there's fish in there. I caught some in practice that week, so we went back into Little Platte. Started on the point just before the no boats buoy. There's a point, rock point, that comes way out before the bank cuts in. You can't go back in that cut in, but you can fish that point. So we started on that point. I missed the fish on wacky rig again. Was really frustrated. I decided, you know, I'm gonna tighten my drag. I didn't know if my drag was causing it, but I tightened my drag down, flipped back in there, working the wacky rig, and then bam, caught. My third fish was probably my biggest, like a 3.5 pounder, on a wacky rig, which was awesome. So now I'm having 3 pretty good ones, but it's still kind of just a grind. I'm just kind of going through, catching fish here and there. Then I caught a short on a buzzbait. There's a little stretch of grass in between the ramp and that point. Caught a short out of there on a buzzbait, and then I was pitching up by the ramp. Caught my 4th keeper on a TRD, but it was a really like squeaker 15, you know, just barely touched. So it was one that you don't really want to take to weigh in, just in case he shrinks a little bit in the live well, or just in case, you know, your board is slightly, I mean, it doesn't take much, like 1/8 of an inch, your board's gonna be off between yours and the tournament, and then that fish is touched on my board, short on his. So I was a little worried about that, but we went ahead and put it in the live well. It touched on my board pretty consistently. I'm really careful with my board not to make sure it doesn't get stretched or stepped on or anything, to try to keep it as consistent as can be. So at this point we have 4 fish. I catch 2 more on the other side of the other ramp. And then I was like, well, I wasn't going to fish golf course. I was saving it for the next day. But I was like, you know what? We got 3 fish. Maybe I can just go pick up, or I know we had 4 fish. It's like, maybe I can just go pick up number 5 in there, weigh in a limit, and have a good chance to get a check. So decided to run into golf course, fishing in the back of the little cut on the left. And I caught my 5th fish on TRD, just a 15.5 inch fish. So I now have a limit, probably 12, 13 pounds. So that was solid. Then I was like, well, we got a limit, probably 12, 13 pounds. So I decided to keep fishing through there, and I decided to put on a vixen. So historically, I caught my biggest limit ever in a tournament in golf course on a vixen about that time of year. So I was like, well, I'm going to pick up the vixen, throw it down this bank that I've caught some big ones on before. So picked it up, ran down the bank, and then caught my 6 keeper, probably another 3-pound fish on a vixen. Was super excited about that. So that upgraded that short one out. So that took that little 15 inch, barely touched the line, took him out for, you know, a 2 3/4, 3-pound fish. So a little bit of an upgrade. Then we kept fishing down the bank, nothing. I was talking to a nice guy that was crappie fishing. Came around the corner, fished the flat side, and bam, caught my 6th keeper, or my 7th keeper on a vixen. And it kept, but it was like a 15 inch fish, didn't really help me. So I was pretty frustrated. I didn't really want to burn fish for the next day. In my mind, that's what I was thinking about. Probably had, you know, I thought I had 13.5, 14, probably 13.5 pounds is what I thought I had at that point in time. Then I just fished a couple more casts later, caught another one, and was like, oh man, I burned another keeper. I'm pretty frustrated. But I put it on the board, and it was like a 16.5 inch fish. So I was like, oh, that actually might, you know, that might actually help me. So I went ahead and culled out a small coal, probably 1/2 pound, 3/4 of a pound coal, not anything too big. And that was my final upgrade. And then I finished up there and ran out and went and weighed in, and we ended up having 5 for 14.26, which is a little bit higher than what I thought. I thought I was having 13.5, 14 pounds maybe, and it was just slightly bigger than that. And we ended up getting 2nd place. So that was the first tournament of the year. Really happy with it. Trying to save stuff for the next day, so it went pretty well. And then so 2nd place, great start to the year. 2nd place in points. 14.5 or 14.25 pounds was solid. I'll take that literally anytime on Smithville, any day, all year, don't care. I'll always take 14 pounds. So stop number 2 for Smithville Bassmasters was actually up at Mozingo Lake, up by Maryville. If you're not familiar, it's a small lake, maybe 1,000 acres. I absolutely smashed them. So I was off work for sabbatical during this time. I went up there on Tuesday and absolutely wrecked them Tuesday during the day. I had probably caught 40 to 50 fish, probably had 30 keepers, deep cranking big worm, Carolina rig, were really my main 3 things, but the deep crank was by far my best. My best 5 at that time, probably 18.5 pounds. So that's kind of setting the stage. And then Friday, I went down there and fished again on Friday, and I really tried to I fished shallow, I didn't fish the bank, and I caught probably 19.5 pounds, but I only had 5 or 6 keeper bites, but I was mainly just messing around. Big storm came through right when I got off the water, soaked everything. So really at Mozingo, I had 5 offshore spots. So this was the first tournament ever that I fished completely offshore. It was the end of June. We fished the dam, and for maybe about 30 minutes, other than that, we fished offshore. Off the bank, couldn't cast to the bank. We were fishing points. So I had 3 main lake points and 2 road beds that I was really just going to rotate all day. So we started on main lake point number 1, which was by far my best spot. We rolled in there, and nothing was happening. It was super foggy morning, and we stayed there and fished for like an hour, and I caught like 1 short, and that was it. And I was getting nervous, and I was thinking about going to the bank. These guys came down the bank and came out to the point. They fished their way through the cove and came out and said that they had just caught 3 or 4 keepers on the bank. So Really kind of made me want to go to the bank, but I stuck with my guns, stayed out off the bank. And then I lost a good fish right at the boat. He short lined me. I just tried to grab the net instead of trying to get my co-angler up there to grab the net. I went to grab him. He came off right at the boat, probably a 3-pounder, but no big deal. Keep grinding on the point. I caught my first keeper on a big worm. I was throwing a 3/8 ounce weight, 5/0 straight shank hook, and a 10.5 inch Zoom Old Monster in black with red flake, black red glitter, I think is what their official name with it. Then I caught one on another one on a deep crank, but it was just a short. So I was really planning on throwing a deep crankbait most of the day. That just didn't work out. So I caught a short on a deep crank. My second keeper came on a Carolina rig, but I noticed when I flipped the fish into the boat that he was gut hooked, and I knew that I was catching him pretty good, and so I decided not to keep that fish. I cut the line, I cut the hook as deep as I could into the fish, and then I let him go. It was probably a 16-inch fish, but he was pretty skinny. I wasn't sure if he was going to make it to the end of the day, so I just let him go. Kept fishing on that point, ended up catching a 3-pound, probably about a 3-pound fish on a big worm. Same thing, point. So on this point, main lake point comes out. There's kind of a ditch from the creek that comes in, and then the main river channel of the lake cuts in there, and it kind of intersects until that point comes out. And there's like 2 or 3 brush piles on the point, as long as just the drop. There's a grass line right at the front as well. A couple standing timber. All the fish we caught were off the bank a little bit further. So after I caught my third fish on a big worm, literally the next cast I cast there, throw the cast out there, bam, hook. I'm literally, my co-angler just put the fish in the live well for me. He's getting on the back deck. I'm setting the hook again. Next cast, another fish, another keeper on a big worm, same big worm. So I thought I'd found the school, and we stayed there a little longer, and we actually, our lines kind of got tangled together. He's throwing a crankbait, and he threw it, and it kind of got entangled with my line. So I'm kind of sitting there waiting for his crankbait to float up, and I was sitting my Carolina rig there. I ended up setting the hook, and it was my biggest fish of the day. One a little bit over 4 pounds. No, sorry, not Carolina rig, big worm. I don't know why I said Carolina rig. Then while we're still at the same spot, I make another couple casts up. We're a little shallower on the point. Caught my 6 keeper on a big worm. So at this point, got a limit, probably 14 pounds, if I had to guess. Caught one more short on that point, and then the bite kind of slowed up. I decided, you know what, let's go hit our second spot. So we run over to the main lake point number 2. Didn't catch anything. I think I caught a walleye on a deep crankbait. Talked to another guy that thought he had 14 or 15 pounds. So decided to run over to our third main lake point, and I caught keeper number 7 on a Carolina rig. I threw it up shallow by the top of the point. Those fish on that point seemed to be a little closer to the bank, whereas the fish on the first point seemed to be a little further off the bank. Caught a short on a deep crankbait, and then caught another short on a Carolina rig, and then actually caught another keeper, number 8, which was my second upgrade. We culled out another fish on a Carolina rig on that point as well. Then we fished around for a while. My co-angler caught a keeper on a deep crankbait, a 6XD, and then I think we caught 1 or 2 more shorts, or he caught a short or 2, and then we decided to leave. Ran down and fished a roadbed up the lake that I'd caught a 4-pounder in practice on. I caught a short. I actually caught 2 shorts on a big worm. One of them might have kept. I didn't measure them because I knew it wasn't going to help me. And then we, you know, that was the only bites we had, so we decided to run all the way down to the dam, which really is not that far, and fish roadbed, or my second roadbed, but there was a boat on it, so we ran down and ended up, that's when we fished the bank for like 30 minutes, fished by the dam. I caught a short fish on a Carolina rig. We fished around that area, didn't really do no good. Went back to the main lake point number 1. I caught another short fish on a big worm. Went to the main lake point number 2 and 3, didn't catch anything. Ran back to the roadbed at the end of the day, and I caught my 9th keeper, but it didn't help me. My co-angler kept getting bites, but he kept missing them or not being able to hook up, and then I broke one off that felt like a big fish, but you really don't know when you're fishing that deeper water. So I ended up with 9 or 10 keeper bites, and my best 5 went 16.48, which still was not good enough to win the tournament. Ended up getting second place in that one as well, behind the same guy that won the first 2 tournaments of the year, who actually, me and him fished the Classic last year, and we won it together, so he actually won 3 in a row. It was another good event. really happy that I decided to stay offshore. It sounded like guys caught them shallow, but they're just, the fish were a lot smaller. Seemed like a lot of the bigger fish were out deeper. Looking back, really the thing I wish I would have done is thrown a jig. I wish I would have thrown a jig. I had one tied on, a football jig to drag around those points and throw in those brush piles, and I just never threw it. I don't even know if I got it out of my box, but I never threw it, and that was really something that I feel like was a mistake. I should have threw that jig. I mean, there's so many ways to work the jig. I feel like I could have got bit, you know, snapping it off the bottom or just dragging it. The fish were there. I think that way we would have triggered maybe a little bit bigger bite for me, but we didn't do that. We stuck with it. I thought the big worm, I could get another big fish. So overall, it was a really good event. 2 seconds to start the year. I was really happy with getting second place. I obviously wanted to win. I was frustrated not winning, especially losing to the same guy that won the tournament before that. So back-to-back second places, Bo, is a really good way to start the year. And a caught. I mean, we had you know, 30 almost 31 pounds in the first 2 events, which is really good for me fishing, you know, Mozingo and Smithville. So that's going to wrap up the first episode of the Smithville Bassmasters tournament in review series that we're going to do. 2 second places in the first quarter of the season. So that's a great way to start. And really the only way you could only one spot better that could have happened. And at the Mozingo tournament, I didn't say this, at the Mozingo tournament I lost by like 0.2 or 0.15 or something like that. It was really close. The Smithville tournament, I think it took 16 pounds to win, 16 or 17. I had 14, so that was a little bit, that would have required me to catch, you know, a 5 or 6 pound fish in order to compete in that one. So that one was a little tougher. But yeah, that's gonna wrap up this episode of this episode of the Smithville Bassmasters 2020 year in review for Smithville Lake and Mozingo Lake. So really appreciate you guys tuning in. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. That'll help me out. We're up to 192 subscribers. I'm continuing to grow the channel. We have the Palmer Memorial Classic that was last weekend. That video is going to be coming out soon. Fishing this weekend in the fish off. I'm actually going to go out tonight with Timmy. Didn't get to go out last time that I wanted to go out. We ended up in the hospital, but everything was fine. So gonna go out this weekend, fish the fish off. Hopefully we can catch some fish. We're on them. We caught them pretty good last weekend. So hopefully we can fish and catch them again. So really excited to get out and fish in this fall weather. So really appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and we'll catch you out in the next one.